people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson. WBO President Parco Vericel has stated that they will order Janibek Alimkanulai to defend his WBO middleweight world title versus mandatory challenger Jaime Munguia next. If Janibek defeats Denzel Bentley on November 12th, and I think he can.
He can.
I think he will.
He will.
I think he's going to stop Denzel Bentley in similar fashion to Felix Cash. I don't like Denzel Bentley's chances in this thing. I don't. But I also don't like the chances of a fight between Janibek and Jaime actually taking place, actually coming into fruition, lest we forget. The people over there at Golden Boy Promotions, they didn't want to let Jaime cross over to the Showtime side of things for a Jermall Charlo fight. And Jermall Charlo, compared to Janibek, he's got more of a profile than Janibek. I mean, I know that Jermall's not a household name, far from it, but he is a bit more well-known amongst boxing fans.
They didn't want to let Jaime cross over for that guy. You think they're going to let him cross over to Top Rank and ESPN for this guy?
No, I don't think it happens. And neither does the reigning WBO champion Janibek Alimkanulai, who reacted to the news by saying, to be honest, I don't believe that Munguia will fight me. He had the opportunity, but if he agrees to fight, then it will be a good fight for the fans and for me. For him, this fight will be...
Well, I don't want to scare him.
There's something that people need to understand about Golden Boy Promotions' stable, and it's that they don't have as many bodies to spare as Top Rank. They don't have as many bodies to spare as Matchroom, or even Queensberry, for that matter. They don't have as many bodies to spare as the PBC. The people over there at Golden Boy Promotions...
They don't have that many flagship fighters. I mean, they really don't. Jaime being one of those flagship fighters, I don't think they would part with him so easily. And I don't think they do what they have to do to bring Janibek over to their side of things.
For what? It's not a big money fight. You know, comparatively, the Charlo fight in the state of Texas, that would have been a bigger money fight and a title fight than a Janibek Alimkanulai fight. If you're going to compare those fights, if you were going to run the risks of Jaime Munguia losing against a reigning middleweight champion, you would have got more bang for your buck from a Charlo fight than a Janibek Alimkanulai fight. And they didn't want to let Jaime go through with the Charlo fight, so why would they let him go through with this fight?
All things relative. Compared to a Janibek Alimkanulai fight, a Charlo fight would have had more of a profile, and they didn't let Jaime go through with that, so why would they let him go through with this?
They wouldn't, and they won't. And when they don't, the WBO will have to comb through their own ranked standings in order to find the next highest ranked available contender who is willing.
Behind Jaime Munguia is Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr., who we all know is supposed to be fighting Conor Benn in their big fight over there in the UK. We know what happened.
Chris Eubank Jr. ain't got no dance partner. Chris Eubank Jr. is free. Do you think a fight like this might be to his liking? It would be the opportunity to fight for a full-fledged alphabet title. Chris Eubank Jr. never having been a full champion.
No, I don't think Janibek Alimkanulai is that lucky. It would be a big opportunity for him. Big money fight, big fight with a profile. But for Chris Eubank Jr., it might be somewhat of a high-risk, low-reward.
I'd sooner expect Chris Eubank Jr. to wait out Gennady Golovkin's situation and see if he can't fight him for his alphabet titles. Behind Chris, Brazil's own Esquiva Falcao is ranked at number 3, and we know Esquiva, he's spoken for. He's supposed to be fighting Gennady in his very next fight. That rules him out. At number 4 is Matchroom's own Felix Cash.
Felix gave Denzel Bentley his first professional loss. He knocked him out in sensational fashion. Does Felix Cash, his team, do they feel ready to take on somebody like Janibek Alimkanulai? I mean, if Denzel Bentley, the man that he beat, if he's ready...
What about Felix? In an ideal world, that would be the succession of fights. Denzel Bentley, And if Janibek beats that guy, he takes on the guy that beat him.
Takes on Felix Cash. Felix Cash, that's with Matchroom. Matchroom have other plans for Felix. It's conceivable that they might. It's conceivable that they would. Ranked behind Felix is Mayrim Nursultanov,
a native of Kazakhstan, the same as Janibek Alimkhanulai. You wonder, those two boys being countrymen, would they have any aversions of facing each other? We know that Janibek has an aversion to facing Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah, he said he looks up to the guy. He doesn't want to have to fight him.
Even though he's currently in possession of 2 alphabet titles in the middleweight division, it doesn't look like Janibek Alimkhanulai is in the market for a passing of the torch fight, even though that's what that would be. Would he have any aversion to facing yet another one of his countrymen in Mayrim Nursultanov? I really don't know.
Ranked behind Mayrim is Australia's own seasoned veteran, Michael Zarafa.
Michael Zarafa, who quite famously shat it.
A little over a year ago, I vaguely recall he was supposed to be fighting Tim Tszyu, and for some reason, one reason or another, he pulled out of the fight.
If a big opportunity like this one were to swing around for Michael Zarafa, the chance to box for a full-fledged alphabet title in order to see himself potentially crowned a full-fledged champion, would he capitalize on it, or would he
pass on this the same way that he passed on a Tim Tszyu fight?
I'll tell you the truth. Which one of these guys specifically Janibek might end up fighting, I don't know. But it's going to be one of these guys. It's not going to be Jaime Munguia. I have no expectations.
I'm not holding my breath. A fight between Jaime and Janibek, that don't happen.
For Jaime Munguia, it's just too risky for not enough money. Not enough money. The fight itself doesn't have enough of a profile. That fight don't go down regardless of what the WBO orders. If they order that fight, Jaime's just going to ignore it. And just in keeping with the theme of men's middleweight news per International Boxing News, next up for Triple G has accepted an offer to defend his WBA and IBF and IBO middleweight titles against Esquiva Falcao in his native Kazakhstan. The fight is being planned for March and is in talks to be broadcast live on DAZN Boxing. We knew that this fight was next. We talked about it here on the channel. The only question was, where would the fight land? Who would broadcast the show? Who would promote it? Because we know that Esquiva Falcao, he has somewhat of a tenuous relationship with the people over there at Top Rank. I mean, he's not an according to Hoyle top rank fighter, but there, at least in the past, has been something going on there. I guess that the people at Top Rank, if this does end up going to Matchroom...
You know what it is? Triple G drives a hard bargain. That guy don't fight on the cheap. And Top Rank isn't going to hemorrhage millions of dollars just to have that guy for one fight.
They're not about to do that for an Esquiva Falcao fight, least of all. Esquiva Falcao, God bless him, unbeaten up-and-comer and decorated amateur that he might be, he has no profile in America. So that fight might be a bit of a tough sell here in the United States, at least at the price that Gennady Golovkin would want it. You know, he don't fight on the cheap.
It's the funniest thing when it comes to Gennady. He climbed up those ranks and gained popularity by posing as this altruistic fighter who only wants to give the fans what they want.
You know the catchphrases, big drama show, all the belts, and all that jazz, when in reality, Gennady Golovkin over time has proven himself to be quite the shrewd businessman.
He's made some very shrewd business decisions. I don't know what the status of his relationship with Matchroom is, but it does appear that he will maintain a relationship with the people over there at DAZN.
They look to be his broadcast partner, his broadcast affiliate. Don't forget that Gennady Golovkin has his own promotional company. I believe he has his own stable of fighters, guys native to Kazakhstan, the same way that he's native to Kazakhstan. And this show going down in his neck of the woods in Kazakhstan, it's conceivable that the event's coordinators, they're Gennady's guys. It's Golovkin's show.
Sounds like it is if it's going down over there. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a Matchroom show.
In a situation where Matchroom is not directly involved with this show, one is left to wonder who's bankrolling all of this, and it's conceivable that it's DAZN bankrolling the show, paying Gennady the way that he wants to be paid.
And if the situation is the way I think it is, and Gennady's not just the fighter, he's the one promoting the show, he's got several different arms of revenue in a situation like that, which goes back to what I said. This guy's a more shrewd businessman than he's actually given credit for.
Because he doesn't just stand to make his fight purse as a fighter. If he's the event's promoter...
That's if he is this event's promoter. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
We'll see what information becomes available in the coming days, weeks, and months leading up to the fight that's supposed to be going down in March. And don't forget, that Esquiva Falcao is one of 2 mandatory challengers in the queue for Gennady Golovkin's. Erslandy Lara is Gennady Golovkin's mandatory challenger by way of the WBA. Esquiva Falcao is his mandatory by way of the IBF, and he seems to be satisfying his IBF mandatory challenger first.
Do you think he'll get around to fighting Erslandy Lara?
You know, it's the funniest thing. I'm not convinced that he will. I'm not convinced that he's going to cross over to the PBC and Showtime side of things for that fight. I'm not. I'm convinced that what he might do is drop that WBA title, let the WBA decide who gets it, Lara or the guy ranked behind him, and what Gennady might do is take that IBF title, take that red belt, if he can hang on to it in March, take that over to the Golden Boy promotion side of things and do some business with them. See what it's worth to them to put their boy, Jaime Munguia, in the ring with an aging Gennady Golovkin. That's a big part of the reason I don't think Jaime Munguia is going to entertain a fight with Janibek by way of the WBO if they order it. What we talked about in my previous segment. Before Jaime takes on Janibek I'd sooner expect him to take on Gennady Golovkin for obvious reasons. Gennady's older, but he's got more name value, more notoriety. He may end up fighting a guy from Kazakhstan, but I don't think Janibek is going to be that guy.
When it comes to Jaime, when it comes to Gennady, you know, I actually think he could beat Erslandy Lara.
It's the funniest thing. There are people out there that would have you believe that Gennady has something to be afraid of in Erslandy Lara, a narrative I saw propagated over the years based on Gennady not giving Erslandy the time of day. But the reason he didn't give Erslandy Lara the time of day is because that guy ain't worth no money. He wasn't worth no money then, he's not worth no money now.
And on that premise, he might not waste any of his remaining time in what remains of his career on an Erslandy Lara fight. A Jaime Munguia fight would be a bigger, better, more lucrative opportunity than fighting Lara.
I've always thought Gennady Golovkin would beat Erslandy Lara. I thought he could beat him then. I still think he can beat him now.
And I wouldn't mind seeing him do it. I actually like that fight. I like that fight very much. The problem is, Lara's not worth no money. And if Gennady Golovkin is still hanging around,
think about it. What the hell are you gonna make fighting Erslandy Lara? Surely not what you could make fighting a Jaime Munguia on either Cinco de Mayo or in September of next year during a Mexican holiday.
If Gennady Golovkin vacates his WBA title to circumvent the Lara fight, I have no doubts that people are going to use that as ammunition to say that Gennady ducked Erslandy Lara. And there'll be an argument there. I don't even doubt that.
It's just that for me, you know, Erslandy Lara is the same guy that got beat by Jarrett Hurd years ago. Years ago when Erslandy Lara still had his legs. And I felt years ago, yesterday's Gennady Golovkin would have beat Lara. Today's Gennady Golovkin likely still can because
Lara's legs are gone, man.
Don't sell me to stream about Lara being some kind of a fucking boogeyman. I don't think he's a boogeyman. I actually picked Jarrett Hurd to beat that guy. And if a limited boxer like Jarrett Hurd had enough to beat yesterday's...
If Jarrett Hurd can beat Erslandy Lara, Gennady Golovkin can beat Erslandy Lara. He could have beat him then. I still think he can beat him now. It's just that, well, Gennady's got better things to do.
There's no other way to put it. And I think that a lot of people aren't going to like it, but that's the reality of things. You don't make boxing Lara at this age what you could make boxing Jaime Munguia.
And I like both fights, by the way. I'd like to be wrong about this, but I don't think I am. I think when push comes to shove, Gennady Golovkin will drop that WBA title and look to fight Jaime Munguia instead.
Because there's more money in a Munguia fight. Basic arithmetic. And finally, in men's welterweight news, the WBC will officially order unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. to face his mandatory challenger Keith Thurman at the 2022 convention. Mauricio Suleiman has revealed the WBC mandatory will be next for Spence, and that seems a bit strange to me, since Errol hasn't satisfied a mandatory for the IBF in years. And what about the WBA? A Montes Stanionis stepped aside and allowed Ugas versus Spence to happen on the premise that he would get the winner. Keith Thurman comes back, fights a guy from 140 pounds who got knocked out at 140 pounds in his last fight. This is the only fight that Keith has had in the last 2 years, and he skips ahead of both of these guys in the queue. Skips ahead of Jaron Boots Ennis and a Montes Stanionis.
You can't make this stuff up.
At audio, those sound bites that have been making the rounds where you can hear Errol Spence Jr. saying that he doesn't want to fight Keith Thurman next. That's out the window. Is it possible that there is dissension on PBC Island, that somebody over there is acting against Errol Spence Jr.'s wishes, that maybe he doesn't want to fight Keith Thurman, but that's the fight that they're working on.
Very garbled audio that we talked about here on the channel in my previous upload. You can hear Errol Spence Jr. say that he wants to fight Crawford in January.
And that he doesn't want to have to fight Keith Thurman, that's out the window. Well, apparently not. This creates a situation to where if the WBC follows through on this and they order that fight, they're going to put Errol in a position to where he might have to vacate the green belt.
It's fight or flight. You fight this guy or you vacate that title. Or you move up and vacate all of them at once.
We know that earlier last week, Jaron Boots Ennis was said to have filed a petition with the IBF to enforce their mandatory. We also know that Eimantas Stanionis is supposed to be in the queue, but we haven't actually heard anything from the WBA in terms of an order. An order issued out to Errol Spence Jr. to face his mandatory by way of the WBA.
Listen, if the order comes down and Errol Spence Jr. actually goes through with this, he goes through with a Keith Thurman fight,
that would indefinitely push a potential Terrence Crawford fight to later on next year. And I guess the silver lining, the saving grace, is that when it comes to Crawford, that would be Golden Boy Promotions' chance to make that guy an offer to do a fight between him and Virgil Ortiz.
There's a minority of individuals that seem to think that Terrence Crawford swerved a Virgil Ortiz fight, when I know of no offer from Golden Boy Promotions to Terrence to do a fight between him and Virgil.
Terrence is a network and promotional free agent after all. He's free to float over there if the money is right, whereas Virgil can't box off platform. He boxes on DAZN under the Golden Boy Promotions banner exclusively. So it's not like Virgil could float over there to Black Prime, for example, and box Terrence there. No, if you want to do a fight with Crawford, you've got to formulate the offer, and you've got to bring him over. If things don't work out with Errol, that's one fight that they can make. That's if they want to make it.
So will they make it? Will they put forth that effort, or will they proceed with their plan to petition the WBA to order a fight between Virgil and Eimantas Stanionis? Because if they're filing petitions for anything, it's that.
You know, on the heels of this news, you have to consider that Errol Spence Jr., if he fights Keith Thurman, that most certainly puts a Crawford fight in jeopardy, but one significant fight that Terrence can have is a Virgil Ortiz fight. That's if Golden Boy Promotions wants to make it, because Terrence himself, he's a network and promotional free agent.
Doesn't have a major promo outfit or a network behind him to bankroll the fight. The onus to bankroll the fight would be on Golden Boy and DAZN.
Can't say I'm surprised to see the WBC ordering a potential Thurman versus Spence fight, to be honest, though. It's always been on the back of everyone's mind.
It's a safer fight for Spence than Eimantas Stanionis, and an even safer fight than Jaron Boots Ennis.
Maybe Errol Spence Jr. isn't crazy about it, but these kinds of things don't just happen on accident. They don't happen on their own. Somebody's been working towards this.
Somebody at the PBC. The PBC that was supposedly trying to make a Crawford fight happen.
Spence himself can always petition for an exemption if he wants to.
Does he, though?